Welcome back to the Ed Show. Ron Paul is in the Republican race for the long haul. How do we know? Well, he's not going to fade away after Iowa, win, lose, or draw, and he has a strategy to be a thorn in the side of the Republican Party establishment right through to the convention. Here it is, a map put together by BuzzFeed.com showing 12 states holding caucuses instead of primaries as Republicans try to choose their nominee. It gives Paul a path to racking up delegates with strong organization and careful planning. This is what he's doing. In 10 of these caucus states, Paul could rack up more than 400 delegates out of the 2,300 needed for the GOP nomination. So if he can't actually win the GOP nomination, at least he could throw around as much weight as possible at the party's national convention. There will be a voice. His supporters are definitely there. Today, Paul made a half dozen stops through Iowa with his son, Senator Rand Paul. Paul's poll numbers may be sagging a bit, but his passionate supporters, they are still with him.
Tomorrow is a very important day. Small in numbers, but a very big message. So you carry a lot of weight in this state. To send a message on which way we're going for the status quo, believe me, you don't have to worry about the choice if you choose another candidate because the others represent the status quo.
Now, last week in Newton, Iowa, I didn't see him ask for the order the way he did right there. By the way, another candidate once used caucus to his advantage. His name is President Barack Obama. Let's turn now to Joan Walsh, editor-at-large, Salon.com, and MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolff. Great to have both of you with us tonight. Let me ask you first, Joan, is this an effective strategy? Is this his best way to shake things up? Because the conventional wisdom is that he's not going to get the nomination.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's an intriguing strategy, but it's also possible to kind of overstate the comparison with Barack Obama, Ed, because obviously Barack Obama, he one of the best things, smartest things his campaign did was organizing those caucus states, and one of the dumbest things Hillary Clinton's campaign did was not take the caucuses seriously. So I see why there's that comparison. On the other hand, Obama had a great national organization. He had the love of the media. He had Ted Kennedy and mainstream figures. So we don't want to go too far with that. But it is a way for him to stay and be both a problem for Romney, but also for the conservative wing. Because if there's still hope that, say, Rick Santorum could really unify that conservative wing of the party, Ron Paul pulls from that. So it's not necessarily a terrible thing for Romney. It still splits that right-wing vote.
Well, the comparison I'm making with Ron Paul and the president is that Paul is doing things in caucus states that the other candidates are not doing, right, all the way out to Idaho. And basically that was a roadmap that none of the other Democratic candidates had followed. That was the point I was making. What is the end game here, Richard? I mean, could he get enough to have enough people? And I've seen the Paul people around him. I mean, they're passionate. They love the guy. Right. They want him not only to get the nomination, they want him to be president. Would he be forced into maybe an independent run?
Well, that is an open question, but I think before you get to that point, he wants to have an influence on the struggle for the soul of the Republican Party, and he has had an influence. Things that would have seemed really way outside of the mainstream of Republicans may still be way outside of the mainstream of American politics, but now are center stage in the Republican debate, and that's really thanks to people like Ron Paul and Rick Santorum on the social conservative side. I do think you've got to look at the professionalism of the Ron Paul campaign. You know, appearances can be deceptive. He does this whole shambling routine, and maybe he's a candidate and his ideas are indeed just that, shambling. But his ads have been professional. He, as well as Mitt Romney's super PAC, have done the damage to Newt Gingrich. Yeah. And this organizing thing is powerful. It's not going to take him to the nomination, but he can have an influence.
Well, Richard, let me ask you, if he gets 400 delegates or a little bit more through this structure of doing what he's doing with the caucus states, and he gets a big speech position at the national convention, what effect would that have on the Republican Party?
Well, I think you're going to see things like closing down whole departments in the federal government will become mainstream. You know, we've already seen Steve Forbes' crazy idea of a flat tax go mainstream for Republicans. Again, not for Americans, but for Republicans. Ron Paul is having that effect right now. He can take that through to the convention.
Yeah. You know, Joan, the Paul supporters I met, they're all or nothing. They want him or they don't want anybody else. What about that?
They are, and that I think that makes it hard to imagine what he would do with his hundreds of delegates when he got to the convention. Ed, there's not a lot for him to bargain on. Certainly, I mean, eliminating whole departments of government is a possibility. The others are open to that already. If Rick Perry could remember them, he would want to abolish a lot of them. So, we see that. But are they going to bargain on cutting off all aid to Israel? Are they going to bargain on actually some of the things in his platform that are anti-war and anti-militarism that I think really light up his supporters? No, none of that is negotiable. So it's hard to see what the end game would be, what he would do with that influence.
Let's listen to part of Paul Stump's speech today in Iowa. Here it is.
Listen to some of the other candidates. They're willing to start bombing Iran right now. The one thing for certain, this country does not need another war. I'll tell you that.
This is a consistent theme, Richard, and of course he's referring to the remarks that were made this morning by Michelle Bachmann. He's consistent. That's what people like about him. But the isolationism is something that the Republican Party would never go along with. What do you think?
Well, I think the other candidates, frankly, have been trigger happy. The way they are talking about military action against Iran, the bar is so low that they think, just saying boo to America when it came to the drone getting captured, that was